they are able to actually find time outside of all of those events to volunteer and give back to the community. Richard was able to complete over 261 hours of community service during that time frame, which made him eligible for the highest level of the Presidential Service Award, the gold level. He is the first gold level recipient in the Explorer program. His sister was in our post a few years back, and she was able to obtain a bronze level award, I believe, so he's upped her quite a bit. You can rub that in later. But it is my pleasure to present and award Richard with this recognition of completing the gold level Presidential Volunteer Service Award.
I'd like to thank Investigator Karsh and the Brighton Police Department for the chances that we were given to serve the community and give back. Thank you again.
Thank you, Richard. I have one other recognition. Richard, not so fast. Could the other two explorers come on up? So we had departmental awards at a town board meeting in May, and I had talked about how Investigator Karch was recognized by the Explorer program. And I'm here tonight with members of his post, the Explorer post, and to report out to the community and the board that Investigator Karch on May 1st, 2017 was presented with the William H. Spurgeon Award. This award is the highest recognition for individuals and organizations contributing to significant leadership in the Explorer program. This is a one-of-a-kind award for a one-of-a-kind person. He was nominated for this award by a group of prior explorers. So Tim talked about giving back from a perspective of Richard and the Explorers. Tim gives back to the community every Tuesday night. He has the Explorers at the police department. He shows leadership quality and traits, and as we heard, that carried on. I heard, Tim, you mentioned the word pay it forward. You have paid it forward considerably. I know when we first had this discussion as to whether we were going to have an Explorer program, you promised that it would be all good, and it's exceptional. Congratulations on your award.
So just when I thought I was done talking. Thank you, Chief, for the opportunity to have the post. I never thought when we started it 6 years ago that it would be where it is today. But at our recent picnic in June, we had the executive from the Exploring Council come in and give a talk to the explorers and the parents that were there. And they came right out and said that our program is the best in the area. So I hope that we can continue that down the road, and thank you for all your support that you've given us.
Councilperson Novros, they've worked with you. Do you want to talk about, you had mentioned?
When I brought the recycling events to the town of Brighton and the pharmaceutical take-back program, it was always a challenge to find people to help us to take the either the electronics or the paper or the pharmaceuticals from the cars that would drive up so that people didn't have to get out of their cars to the barrels. And then the Explorers came along, and they are unbelievable. And I remember Rich has been with them for 3 years, and when he first showed up 3 years ago, it was 3 years ago. He was a little cocky. He was a little, unsure of what he was going to do and so forth. And he has become quite a leader. He is unbelievably a leader for that group. And everybody seems to look up to him. And he knows exactly what we're doing. And in all the thousands of tons of pounds and tons of paper and electronics and pharmaceuticals that we've taken in, these kids have handled it all. They've carried them over to the trucks and so forth. And I am so proud to be part of this. And they are a great group of people. Tim is fantastic with them. And Rich, congratulations.
picture, then that gives me an opportunity to take a little break. I will come back.
You know, while we're talking about law enforcement briefly, I want to mention an event this morning. Every year, the AAA holds a breakfast to recognize the adult crossing guards. If you're on the streets of Brighton, particularly at the morning rush hour or, you know, middle of the afternoon, you will see these men and women out on the corners near our schools. And, you know, there's no one in the county that has a more challenging corner to staff with crossing guards than Brighton with the 12 corners. But these men and women have done it safely, consistently for years. They put their safety at risk. They get out in front of the kids when needed. They literally are a physical presence, stopping cars, making sure that our kids and our grandchildren get to school safely. And every year the AAA recognizes them, and in particular recognizes those who have worked extended periods of time. If you go through over the years, you'll see pretty much the same faces. We've had great continuity. They know the conditions. They know the kids. And that's a really important part of the program, because those crossing guards are more than just, you know, people out there with a stop sign in their hands. They are people that our students look up to. They chat with them on the corners. They really have an engagement to start the day with those folks. So Chief Henderson and I were at that breakfast this morning where those crossing guards were honored, and it's just one more example of how our Brighton Police Department works to improve the quality of life in Brighton through a commitment to public safety. And I'm really grateful not only to the department, but also to those crossing guards. And I wish them all a great summer. They were talking about their summer plans, and we'll see them all back in September. Next, we're going to have a presentation by our town assessor, Elaine Ainsworth, and Sue Wentworth, the town's information technology director. They're going to be talking about the upcoming property assessment revaluation in Brighton. I'm going to get out of their way so they can shine this up on the screen behind us. Elaine Ainsworth, our town assessor, Sue Wentworth, our IT director.
I'd like just a little bit more so I can, it is a little dark.
All or nothing.
Is there a, it is all or nothing?
Pretty much all or nothing.
Okay. It's all or nothing. We'll be okay. Okay, perfect, thank you. That'll work, perfect, thank you. Okay, so you can, there we go, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, I am Elaine Ainsworth. I am the town assessor. I've been here a very long time. We are, the town is going to do a town-wide reassessment of all of the properties for the 2018 roll. Why is that necessary? New York State real property tax law requires that all properties in a municipality be assessed at an equal percentage of market value each year. What they say is that all of the properties must be assessed at the same value. When we do an update, we bring it to full value, 100%. It's something very easy to understand. You look at that number, you understand what it means. That's reflective of what we believe you could reasonably expect to receive in the market for your piece of property. As time goes on, if you do not do an update, that number starts to not be true and uniform. And generally, if there's appreciation of any kind, what starts to happen is that the sales and the values overall are coming in higher than what that assessment is. But what happens is that it's not uniform. just like hairstyles and hemlines, things don't change and appreciate the same. Certain pieces of property may become more desirable, certain locations, certain uses. And in order to ensure that the town is at a uniform and that they are represented what that is, the state has oversight. So they play a role in taking a look at what the sales are versus what the assessments are. And then as time gets farther away from your update, they take it one step farther and they start to randomly select specific pieces of property and do their own appraisals. And from that, they give us the numbers that they say are reflective of our uniform percent of value or our percentage of value. But what happens is that their random selection really may not be reflective of our properties as a whole. So while they are saying that our percentage has reached X instead of 100%, it really may not be representative of all of the properties. And that is one of the reasons it's so important that we take on this project to look at everything individually and put them where they need to be. The current level of assessment or uniform percent of value based on the statistics that the state has given us is 89%. And that's significantly below 100%. It's something that people have to interpret it, and it's not where we want to be. And so the next thing I really want to take 1 minute and talk about is that assessments are determined by your local assessor. We take, independently, we take a look at the market and we apply those conditions to the properties to estimate the market value. It's defined by what a property would reasonably be expected to receive in the market. So we are putting values on your property, but the assessment office has nothing to do with taxes. What we have to do with it is the distribution and the value of your property. So I wanted to clarify what our role is, and it is to put the values on your property that are reflective of the current market. And we'll talk about what happens when we do an update. An update, of course, is a huge project and it has a lot of components. So we want to make sure that our data is right. We want to make sure that what we are looking to value, that we have the proper information on. So in order to do that, we have to make sure that the information we have on each piece of property is proper. We sent out to the commercial properties income and expense information, and we sent out to the residential properties data mailers. We sent those out in pieces over 14 and 15 so that as that information came back into us, we could respond to changes that people felt we needed to take a look at in their property. For example, if someone did not believe that our square footage was right, then they would send that information. Either they would sign off on the sheet and say, yes, we agree with your records, or they'd say, no, this is not proper. That time period allowed us to look at the property records that the individuals felt were not accurate and respond to those. We went out and looked at pieces of property. We sent them back more data and said, is this what you mean? And that information on every piece of property is available for everyone in my office, if you want to come in and take a look at what my records are, or if from your home with a cup of coffee you want to go to the town's website, we give you a link into the county's real property portal where that information is available to everyone all of the time. So if someone still questions or didn't take a look or doesn't remember that exchange with us regarding that information, you can look at that information and get back to us on that anytime. Then what we will do as a part of this project, after we have taken sales information and the inventory information and looked at what is recommended through those analysis as new market values, we will do field review. We will go out and look. Are we looking at a cul-de-sac or are we looking at a busy intersection? We want to make sure that in addition to the information we have in the computer and the sales information we have available, that we're taking into consideration the other influences that may be impacting any piece of property. So we will go out and do field reviews. And that is of the values that have been represented by the system we're going to use and our data, and we want to go take a look at the environment to see if we really if we're measuring. And again, it is subjective. It is an art and not a science. It is data that is then interpreted, but these are some of the steps and the components that we use in this process to establish these new values. And once we have we have just completed the work on the commercial. The commercial notices will go out to those property owners they're going out at the end of this week. And for the residential properties, we will be doing the informal reviews for the commercial throughout the summer. Then we will begin the field review of the residential data, and we will be sending the commercial property owners are getting their letters we're expecting by right around July 1. The residential will be getting theirs just before December 1st. So those letters they will talk to you about what your steps can be if you want information on how we came up with your value, or if you don't believe that the value is proper and you want to contest it. So for the commercial, the informals will be held during August. The letter that I just spoke about they will receive very soon will give a phone number to schedule an appointment for an informal meeting, and then the results of anything that come out of informals will be mailed to those people in September. For the residential, those informals will be held during January and February. We're going to send those letters out by the 1st of December. You will have opportunities during December to call for your appointments, and then those notifications of any changes will come out May 1st of 18. So there's our calendar. We're going to be doing these notifications, informals, and then all letters will be out by May 1, which is the annual filing of a tentative roll, and that always opens the formal process. So there are 2 steps for reviewing. There are the informals, and then we come to the formal grievance process that is available to everyone every year. The tentative roll is always filed May 1. The grievance is always the 4th Tuesday in May. And this information is also on our website. So if anybody, it's there, it's always there. And our phone, call us if you ever have questions. During the formal process, I try to make it a point to be available to sit down with people the first 2 weeks in May. You do need to complete the grievance application, and you need to support whatever you think your value should be. But I also am often able to resolve disputes, questions, value discrepancies through those stipulation meetings for many, many people where that cannot happen or where someone chooses not to take advantage of that. The grievance board always meets on the 4th Tuesday in May. So that's sort of the overview, quick and dirty. We have information, we have brochures, we have information on the website, and as I said, you could always call our office. But that's sort of the calendar, that's the summary of what the project is all about. And now if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Oh, okay, for those who are not happy with what comes out of the formal process, which again is available every year, this is also annual. If you must take advantage of the grievance process in order to go the next step. For commercial properties, there's a judicial review through a tax certiorari, and that does require legal filings. For residential owner occupied, there's another, the small claims, it requires the filing of an application with the county, and then that is a sit down with a hearing officer, the property owner, and the assessor, where again, each side brings in their information. So that's again your remedies if you don't believe that the job we have done comes up with a proper market value for your piece of property. Okay, can I answer any questions for anyone? Okay, yes.
Is there a way to find a copy of your presentation online?
We can post it, yeah. And we also have a lot of other good information on there as well, so I encourage you to go online. We have a whole section dedicated to the update, which really restates this, actually probably in more detail. This is a summary, but we can put this up as well.
Okay.
Mhm. Anyone, any other questions?
Thank you very much, Elaine and Sue. That's a lot of information. And it is a very extensive process, and we're fortunate to have 2 real pros handling this work, and in particular having Sue's IT expertise as well as your real property expertise is a bonus and allows us to do more of the work in-house, not only saving us money, but I think making the process a little more personal. You see Sue's face, you see Elaine's face, you know who you're dealing with.
Let's not
It's
forget
not
Renee's, right?
yeah, it's
Yep.
it's not some contractor, for most of what we're going to be doing. So I know it's an extensive process. I think the message is the phone number is there. You are available through the process. That information will be on the webpage and more. So.
And I do want to say that I have met with one homeowners association, I do have another one, but if you have a group that you would like me to speak to, please give us a ring, we will do that. I also want to thank everybody that responded to the data mailers. We had an overwhelming response, and it's so helpful. The job I do depends on good data, and the fact that people were willing to read that correspondence and get back to us in such numbers was really, really extremely helpful. The job will be as good as the data we have, and so having you respond and get back to us really was key. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Okay, now we will begin the open forum portion of the meeting. We do this at every town board meeting. We do it at the start of the meeting. We want to give all of you an opportunity to ask any questions about matters affecting the town, whether or not they're on the agenda for tonight. I will say that we do have one public hearing on the agenda tonight, the incentive zoning proposal for property located at 1925 South Clinton Avenue. If you are here for that matter, I would encourage you to wait until the public hearing is called, and that will be quickly. That'll be at the front end of the meeting. But if you're here to talk about any other matter, we welcome you now. I would just ask that you raise your hand, come to the microphone, state your name and address. Please direct any comments to the board and not to other members of the audience. Try to be concise. If you have any written material you'd like the board to consider, you can give it to our town clerk, Dan Amon, and he'll enter it into the record and make sure that everybody gets copies. Now, I would also say that if you're streaming us live, if you're engaged in our meeting in a remote way tonight, you can also participate in the open forum by calling 303-3060. That's 303-3060. Someone will take your call, your question or your comment, and relay that up to me. And I would also note that if you are watching remotely and you are deaf or hearing impaired, you can also participate in the open forum by calling our TDD line at 784-5205. Again, TDD 784-5205. As always, we welcome participation in the open forum. Is there anyone that would like to address the town board tonight during our open forum? Okay, hearing none, we will continue on with our meeting, and I would ask one of my colleagues on the board for a motion to approve our agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing?
Aye, and can I have a motion to approve and file the meeting minutes for the June 14th, 2017 town board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on those? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros? Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mailing?
Aye. The next matter on the agenda is the public hearing concerning the incentive zoning proposal for the development of property located at 1925 South Clinton Avenue. This is a matter that I have recused myself on. I will not be participating in this public hearing. I will leave the room, and I will temporarily turn the chair over to Senior Town Board Member Jim Vogel, who will conduct the board meeting.
And we'll notify you as soon as we're completed. Yeah. All right, we'll now conduct the public hearing on the matter regarding incentive zoning, as Bill mentioned, for the proposed development of property located at 1925 South Clinton Avenue. First of all, I'd like to ask the town clerk, has a necessary legal notice been published on this matter?
Yes, Councilman Vogel, the notice was in the Brighton Pittsburgh Post on June 15th.
Very good. Now I'll ask Ramsey Boehner, our town planner, to basically describe the matter before the town board here with regard to this hearing.
The matter before the town board this evening is the application of the DeMarco Group for incentive zoning for the development of approximately 11.2 acre parcel of land located at 1925 South Clinton Avenue, consisting of 3 tax parcels. The proposed development will consist of a number of uses, including medical office, professional office, a children care center, restaurant, retail, with a gross development area of 77,000 square feet.
Okay, all right. I'll now declare this public hearing open, and I'll ask, is there anyone in the audience representing the applicant that would like to present or address the board on this matter? Ashley?
Good evening. Ashley Champion with Nixon Peabody. Joining me tonight on behalf of the applicant, the DeMarco Group, are Paul Colucci, John DeMarco, and Bill Dirtle. So we have our whole team here to answer any questions that you may have. As Ramsey briefly outlined, this is an application for the development of the property at 1925 South Clinton Avenue. We are seeking incentive zoning treatment from this board. The proposed incentives that we're requesting primarily consist of some expansion of the allowable uses at the property, primarily to allow medical office and some retail uses consistent with the uses that are currently realized across the street at the existing Tops Brighton Plaza. In exchange for those incentives, we're offering certain amenities that are outlined in your application, consisting of a multi-use trail throughout and in the vicinity of the property in furtherance of the town's bicycle and pedestrian master plan, sidewalk improvements in addition to those that would be constructed in front of the property, some additional sidewalk improvements in the vicinity of the project, also in compliance with the town's bicycle and pedestrian master use plan, and then a reoccurring cash amenity payment to be made to the town throughout the life of the project. There's been a lot of discussion about the potential use for this particular piece of property dating back several years, and this particular application has been pending before the town for quite some time as well, so we thought it'd be helpful just to give a brief overview of the process to date. The application was initially submitted in January of 2016. At the time, this board accepted it and filed it and referred it to the planning board for their advisory report as required under your incentive zoning regulations. We appeared before the planning board in February of 2016, where we received a fair amount of feedback and comment on the proposed plan. Took that feedback back, made some changes to the plan and to the application, and submitted an application supplement to the town in March of 2016, and we're back before the planning board that same month. On March 16th, the planning board accepted the changes that we had made to the site plan and issued their advisory report, which was favorable and positive, and indicated to this board their preferred plan, which is the plan that we have since been modeling the proposed development after. Spanning then from April of 2016 all the way really until last month, we've had various meetings before the Town Public Works Committee and also meetings with town staff, both working through and tweaking the amenities and the incentives. Town staff meetings with Ramsey in particular focusing a lot on the proposed incentive zoning regulations, making sure that we were covering all of our bases as to what the proposed and allowable uses would be at the site, while remaining consistent with the uses in the area. As Ramsey mentioned, it's going to be no more than 77,000 square feet of development, which, although we are asking for some tweaks to the bulk area regulations that would otherwise be governing this property, the overall density is consistent with what would be currently allowable at the site. We had some additional application supplements and amendments throughout the course of that year and a half based on feedback that we had received from both the Public Works Committee and town staff. So we had submitted additional application supplements and amendments on May 23rd, 2016, and then most recently on March 31st, 2017. Last month here, this board at its May 24th meeting had accepted the application, deemed it worthy of further consideration, set the date for this public hearing, and also declared its intent to act as lead agency for purposes of seeker. And so we are here tonight, and we are happy to answer any questions that the board has about the application that have not yet been answered, or that you have follow-up on, or to otherwise overview the project site, again, if there's any further follow-up that you'd like in that regard.
Well, I think it'd be worthwhile to have an overview of what's being proposed on the site. Ken, did you have?
Yeah, I just, I do want to encourage the board to ask questions of the developer, but since we do have the public hearing, this is a public hearing, perhaps it would be appropriate to first hear from the public and then have the town board members go back and ask the questions of the developer as they see fit.
Fine. At this time, I'd like to invite anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board on this matter. But would you please raise your hand, and then when you're called, state your name and address, and please come up to the podium if you would. Anyone out there? Yes, sir? Come on up. Please come up to the podium. State your name and address if you would, please.
I'm Robert Stevens. I'm a member of my address is 2001 Clinton Avenue South. I'm a member of the resident council of Brookdale Brighton, property that's adjacent, partially adjacent to the property in question. I saw the initial proposal for this project, and based on that information and what I saw in the drawings on display in the Department of Public Works, I spoke to the resident council at what we call a town board meeting this morning. I described the project, and in particular, I described the connecting road between the proposed project and our property. As some of you know, there was a tragic accident opposite our property when one of our staff members was struck by a car going to the bus stop that's immediately opposite our driveway. We have a number of people who drive. They have difficulty getting onto Clinton Avenue safely. They're concerned about it. We have a number of people who walk over to the shopping mall, and they're concerned about crossing. So at the meeting this morning, I asked for a show of hands for those that would support the idea of the project and the connecting road to our property. And it was almost a universal acceptance. So I wanted to pass that on to the board. I have a technical question that perhaps should be brought up later with the developer, having to do with drainage from the property to our property. And should I mention that, or?
Sure.
Well, the drainage plan shown in the application shows a collection point at the southwest corner of their property, very, very close to what will be the connecting drive to our property. I believe, from just eyeballing the site through all the underbrush that's on the site now, that property may be higher than ours, and I'm concerned that if that drainage should fail in any way, the runoff from the parking lot would cross that road into our property, which happens to be a very low point of our property. So I want to be sure that the applicant, when they do the engineering, takes measures to prevent that from happening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And Ms. Champion, if you and your team could address that later on when you get back up, please. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, sir, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Russ Craig. I own the Landmark House directly in front of the Brookdale and probably the closest homeowner to all this development. I've lived there for 60 years.
What's the address of that property, please?
1981 South Clinton. My main concerns are noise. In fact, there's going to be a driveway somewhere behind my house connecting Gables, or the Brookdale. I believe it's probably a good idea to connect it. I want to see as far back as possible because I'm going to have to listen to the traffic. I'm also going to have to listen to the traffic as they connect. There was a tragic accident. It's probably a good idea to connect them, but I think as far back as possible, less impact on the homeowners. As such, I believe the DeMarco Group owns the church next door now. I haven't seen any plans for that. I kind of like to know what the plans are. Eventually, they're going to affect me more than the development on the other side of the church, which is kind of a buffer. You know, I'm the one that's going to have to live with the noise. I'd like to see some sort of trees, maybe a berm in, if possible. I don't know if any of you people live next to parking lots. There's a big parking lot at Brookdale behind me. There's a parking lot in front of me. There's a parking lot in the whole shopping center across the street. You get woken up at night every winter by the snow plows. You get to hear the lawnmowers in the summer on Saturdays and Sundays. As much as you can do this and impact noise and such would be good. That's pretty much it. Like I say, there's no stopping this. It's going to happen. But as such, my house has been there since 1855. It's one of the oldest houses in Brighton. I'd like to be able to pass that on to my kids. And I think, I have no argument with the shopping center across the street, and this is probably going to be done tastefully. So, I'd like to see it fit in with the neighborhood. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this matter? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address clearly, please.
My name is William Harvey. I'm a physician at 1820 South Clinton, which is approximately directly across from the proposed development. And I'm here to request to the board that consideration for a stoplight at the intersection of Rudaville and South Clinton be made because of the danger of that intersection. Certain times of the day have become extremely difficult for our patients to access South Clinton, particularly if they're trying to turn south and not north. And even if they try to turn north, the amount of traffic flow going north during the rush hour in the morning and in the afternoon when the school next door to us lets out makes it really prohibitive for patients to try to turn in either direction. And it becomes quite a quagmire of congestion that then blocks up the egress and entrance to our office. So we would request that consideration for a stoplight, that intersection be made.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this matter? Sure, come on up.
Hi, I'm Valerie Carey, 1550 Elmwood Avenue. We live just down the street from the proposed development. And our main concerns have to do with traffic and also just overall density. The sort of western Brighton area has become sort of more developed, and the character is changing, in some ways good, but we do have concerns just that more traffic, more pavement, less open space, the concern for our property and just our neighborhood. Traffic on that area is very difficult, and I'm not sure, I'm not an expert in traffic, but I do know that that road can back up, and sometimes it can be very difficult. We also like to ride our bikes, in our neighborhood, and that can be difficult. Elmwood has become more traffic. There's heavier traffic and faster traffic. Clinton is also a road that has traffic that goes significantly faster than the speed limit most of the time. So all these things, we're living on Elmwood Avenue and concerned for, safety of pedestrians and things like that. So those are our primary concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this matter? Sure, come on up, please.
My name is Susan Cinquino. I live on Hollyvale Drive in Brighton, but I'm actually speaking on behalf of my business. I'm the owner of the Children's Center of Brighton, which is located at 2501 Lacteville, right across around the side of the Tops Plaza, opposite where this proposal building is happening. We have owned the Children's Center of Brighton for 50 years. My parents are the original founders. Started out as a mom and pop babysitting service in my family's home and grew out of the hard blood, sweat, and tears of families depending on us and the need in the community. We moved from our home into rented space and actually had the DeMarco Group build our buildings for us about 25 years ago. I'm concerned about the added childcare center, which is going into the proposed site. I believe it's the only contracted business currently from what we've been told. I'm concerned for the families that we care for, because if we are not able to solidly maintain our enrollment, that's going to affect a business that has supported the Brighton community for 30 plus years. We have an outstanding reputation in the community. I know that the childcare center moving into this development is very aware of that. And I'm concerned just in general of what that's going to do for our business and for the 200 plus families that we serve if we're not able to stay in business with this new childcare center opening up. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak or on this matter? Anyone?
All right. Councilman Vogel, I do believe also that the board received communication from Misha Cohn earlier today, which should be also made part of the public hearing record. Mr. Amon, do you have a copy of that correspondence?
I have a copy right here. I'm going to give to the town clerk.
All right, so that should be, that should be made part of the public hearing record as well.
Okay.
Is her address on there, Misha Cohn's? She just describes herself as a Highland Park neighbor.
That's correct.
No, it is not.
Okay, well, so we'll hand that over to you,
Evan.
Dan, and you'll have
Right.
that.
You just pass that down. Yeah. All right. Anyone else? At this time,
Town board, questions, comments?
any questions? Jason, Louise, Chris?
Well, and this is directed to the development, Paul, if you want to take it, whichever. You folks know that I've raised an issue regarding Doodlebugs, who is your prime tenant. It's my understanding that they do not accept children who receive daycare subsidies through the state and county program. I've raised this issue with Doodlebugs and with your group as the landlord with the hope that this policy might be changed. What is your thinking or How have we come out on that?
Sure, we've spent a lot of time discussing that issue, Mr. Warner. Paul Colucci with the DeMarco Group. We spent a lot of time talking through that issue with yourself, and as part of the evolution of this project, as you'll recall, we had a visit scheduled over to Doodlebug Center in Henrietta, where you had a chance to meet the operators, the owners, the Encina family and the O'Donnell family, where they toured you through their facility. I believe every council board member had that opportunity. They were able to explain their operation to you, and you followed up with an email outlining your concern. They responded. All I can offer you is the response that they gave you relative to their business operation is what they have put forth on the record back to you. They're not here tonight. I can't speak for them on that behalf. We are unable to ask them to change their business practices. And we, again, spoke at the last Public Works Committee meeting on this matter, where I believe you and Mr. Vogel had a bit of a difference of opinion on that matter. We have no further information really to offer you on that at this time.
Well, I appreciate your engaging me in the discussion, and I did appreciate the tour. I was very impressed with the facility out there in Henrietta, but Doodlebugs has provided various business rationales for this policy and why they do not accept subsidized children in their program. It's still troublesome to me, and I disagree with those rationales, but it's my belief that providing this best-in-class preschool experience to all children, irrespective of their economic circumstances, is quite important. It's an important societal goal, and I think it could be part of the solution to a very intractable social problem, particularly preschool education. I'm going to continue to press this point with Doodlebugs and with you with the hope that they could change their policy. I don't think there'd be a significant impact on their business, but I'd like to continue that discussion, I guess, is where I'd like to leave that.
Understood.
Thank you.
Jason, or please, anything?
Could I just ask a question, Mr. Ponzio? Just because there were a couple resident comments that were made, and I just want to make sure that the developer gets a chance to address those as well. One related specifically to drainage. I don't know if you have somebody prepared to answer that.
Yep, I can cover it. I made notes as the residents spoke, and I can go through those and kind of give you an overview of the site plan. And I think I'll be able to cover the concerns that were raised through that overview. So behind me is the site plan. As I step away from the mic, you may not be able to hear me. I'll try and speak up a little bit.
Right, we want you to stay by the microphone or take the portable mic with you so that you can be heard by our television audience as well. It's not on? Mr. Amon's signaling to me that it's not working.
Move the card.
It's not working?
No, that's all right. If you could just make sure you speak into the microphone on the podium, and you can go back and forth to your diagrams.
The plan is being brought to me, so I think
there you go.
I think we're covered.
That's a solution. Thank you.
So, South Clinton Ave to the bottom of the page, north is to your right.
Paul, I'm sorry. You got to shift it over to the left. We're the people conducting this hearing. We got to see it. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Can you see that, Jason?
You don't have to, I'll move over here. That's okay.
Right, because we wanted to stay on camera as well.
Okay.
So South Clinton Ave to the bottom of the page, north is to the right. We had reference to Brookdale community, that's to the left of the page, just south of us. The proposed 11 acres is outlined. The site plan's been consistent with what's in your application and what we actually have shared with you since the beginning of this going through the evolution as Ashley described. The daycare center, which is the only committed tenant at this time, is to the north part of the site. The stormwater management facility at the northwest corner of the property. Grade today Falls actually goes from High Point being at the south to the north, hence why we located the stormwater management facility to the north so that we can allow the grading and the drainage to work in its natural state. We do show outbuildings to the front. Those would be... here you go, Paul. Sorry. Thank you. 9,200 square foot building, which is contemplated to be a mixed-use building, potentially retail. Restaurant building shown on the plan right now, 4,500 square feet. And then this plan shows two buildings that are contemplated to be mixed-use buildings, medical office, and other uses that are described in the regulations. So the first question that came up was the connection drive to Brookdale, and that is shown to the far west of the property, as far as we can put it west and maintain an 80-foot buffer to our rear property line. In going through with town staff and working through the application, it was indicated to us that one of the important elements was to maintain this 80-foot buffer. So that is represented on this plan that's in the application. The connection drive would be made to Brookdale, thereby giving them access to what would be constructed as the fourth leg of the existing stoplight that serves the current Lockdeville Plaza. So I think we are able to address the concerns that that was raised relative to both unanimous acceptance or universal acceptance, I think, as it was stated, that they would like to see a connection road. We are planning to do that. And then I believe Mr. Craig's comment relative to trying to have that road located as far away from his property as possible, as his home is located right here. So we're accommodating that. Drainage, where the gentleman mentioned that we are showing stormwater or a collection area to the southwest, that's actually not the plan. We are bringing all of the drainage to the northwest. So we're not planning. We do sit about 6 feet above the connection property to the south. Also talked about, the gentleman from 1820 South Clinton mentioned the potential to have a stoplight at Rudeville, where you'll see we have two access points serving the property, one opposite the existing Tops Brighton Plaza intersection. The other one lines up with Rudeville. We did submit a traffic study to Monroe County DOT. They have accepted that traffic study through a couple iterations of comments. The town, I believe, has engaged a third-party reviewer of our traffic study. We haven't received any comments back on that yet. But out of that traffic study, what was realized out of it was two things. One, constructing this as the fourth leg is obviously a natural improvement that we would be required to do. So we would turn that into a four-way intersection. They asked us to study potential for a future signal at Rudeville should we meet the warrants. And by meeting the warrants, I mean we have to prove that it's required. So we did a warrant analysis. It could potentially precipitate a second signal opposite Rudeville if the county DOT finds that it would not interrupt the traffic flow on the South Clinton corridor, and it would be an improvement that would help with public safety. So in the traffic study, there is potential that there would be a future signal opposite Rudeville, such that they asked us as part of our conditions of the traffic study to put the underground improvements in when we do the improvements on South Clinton Ave. So,
and just to highlight one implication of what you're saying, Mr. Colucci, is that because South Clinton is a county road, it is actually a county decision as to whether a traffic light would go in at that intersection of Rudeville and South Clinton. It's not something that this town board has the authority or jurisdiction to determine.
that's accurate. That's
And Paul, your comment was that you would do the underground improvements that would permit the installation of a traffic light if it was later found necessary
Correct.
by the county.
Correct. No other improvements other than some signal timing adjustments were required out of the traffic study, and that includes the entire study area that went to South Clinton and Elmwood, South Clinton and Winton Road, as well as the entire corridor. We do have a turn lane that would be constructed for the southerly entrance and some striping modifications to make the left turn into the plaza. The additional improvements that we've been contemplating include sidewalks. Ashley described the amenities. We do currently have in the application approximately 1,197 feet of sidewalk above and beyond what we would be building across our frontage, would extend south from the southerly project boundary towards South Winton. We had additional dialogue at the Public Works meeting. I'm happy to go through those additional discussions we had, should that be something you want to talk about as well.
I was wondering if you could describe what screening or mitigation measures are being utilized to buffer the residential properties on South Clinton. I'm aware of the 80-foot buffer behind the project. What about anything in the front? I think there was some concern expressed about that as well.
I think we're referring to this residential property, which is actually one property south of the church property that is not part of this application. We did acquire that church property after we commenced this. It is currently zoned limited business. We find that zoning would be conducive with whatever we believe would be a future development at that site. I know the gentleman expressed that he hasn't seen any activity on that. We're looking at the overall disposition of this once we understand what the town board's decision will be, and if we go further with the process, that will help us understand what we could ultimately develop on that property. But we don't believe that we would have any reason to look to propose a use that's not conducive with business limited zoning. We're not proposing any significant buffering across the front other than low-lying landscape vegetation. We did, in working with the planning board, take the parking that in our initial site plan was shown in front of the buildings, which is very common with development, having the parking convenient at the front of the buildings. Through some iterations and discussions with the planning board, we turned the buildings sideways, and we brought the parking more inbound as a mitigating measure to buffer South Clinton area right away. But we are not proposing any significant berming or buffering along the frontage, as would be natural. We want visibility.
And relative to the property that was formerly a church that was acquired by your client, is there currently a plan to incorporate that into this project and make that an expanded part of this office retail plaza?
No, as I was just describing, that piece sits right here. It's limited business. On the zoning map, you can see where we're currently, business limited is our current 11 acres. This is BE1. So I'm sorry, I was inaccurate with that.
So that would be office business use?
Yep, this is a BE1 zoning. My mistake, I apologize. We've looked at whatever use we would propose on that would be consistent with that BE1 zoning. So we're not proposing to incorporate it into the incentive zoning application.
And just one other matter, Ms. Champion had mentioned some cash amenity payments that would be made throughout the life of the project. Could you describe those in more detail and what the intent and purpose of those cash amenity payments is?
I'm probably going to let Ashley jump in on that one.
So this is all detailed in, it's Exhibit A to the most recent application supplement, the March 31, 2017 supplement. This project will likely, like a lot of new development in the county, be receiving incentives through COMITA, so that will be subject to a pilot agreement. And the town, if the property were subject to a pilot agreement, would, under that pilot arrangement, receive less than what would be, at least for the initial term of the pilot, full taxation payments on the property. So as an amenity to sort of make the town whole for what it would otherwise be receiving from real property tax revenue, there will be an amenity. So in lieu of taxation, it would be an amenity payment, which would bridge the gap from what the town will be receiving under the pilot payment and what it would be receiving under true taxes. So when I said the life of the project, I really meant the life of the pilot until the property is back subject to taxation, in which time the town would just receive the regular real property tax benefits from the property.
And that's a 10-year phase-in, is that correct?
I think we're not exactly sure yet the terms. It will be definitely 10. So yes, as of now, I don't think the pilot's been finalized, but as of now, it's thought to be a 10-year pilot term.
But that's the town taxes, that does not include the school taxes or the county taxes. Is that
That's correct. It's just the town portion.
Regarding the discussion on amenities and sidewalks, can you elaborate a little more on that?
You want to talk about the additional
Sure.
potential?
Yeah, we, as I described, we have in the application that you currently have in your possession, 1,197 feet of sidewalk that would be from the southerly boundary of the property along Elmwood Ave, extending towards Winton Road on the west side of South Clinton. At the June Public Works Committee meeting, we discussed additional sidewalks, and you shared with us the sidewalk master plan. We have discussed and would offer an additional sidewalk amenity. We looked at three other areas. We looked at Rudeville, a small section on Rudeville Boulevard, approximately 188 feet, which I believe I have. It's just an overall aerial. So the project site sits in the middle, the existing shopping plaza, McQuaid, Elmwood, South Clinton, Rudeville. There's a small section of sidewalk gap that exists today. We would fill that in about approximately 188 feet. Another section was Lac DeVille Boulevard. At Brittany Circle, there's a gap there that was identified, approximately 81 feet. It's just off the map, right in this area. And then there was a section between Westland Drive and Eastland Drive on the north side of Elmwood Ave of approximately 793 feet that we would offer that as an additional amenity. That would bring approximately double the total sidewalk amenity that's currently in the application. It'd bring it up to just under 2,200 feet of sidewalk. And that was, through discussion at the Public Works Committee, identifying where there was a need, and we felt that was an amenity that could truly benefit the community. It has connectivity to the project site, and it really made sense. In dialoguing through the additional sidewalks, the trail amenity that we were offering wasn't quite what the board, at least Public Works, felt was really going to be significant enough or really have any relevance, because the town hasn't extended their trail master plan, where that section we were talking about putting in would have any connectivity to anywhere. So we would not do that trail amenity other than the trail that we're proposing to build through the site, which would be sidewalk, that would be future connectivity. It is this project site is central to a future connecting link for one of your trail master plans. So we would not do that trail amenity, we would offer the additional sidewalk amenity.
Yeah, Paul, you've heard from Ms. Carey, and I agree with her that traffic is one of the primary issues here, of course. And that traffic impact on Elmwood Avenue is significant. And we do have some gaps along Elmwood. I'm very pleased to hear you be willing to add in the Westland-Eastland connection. And I don't mean to be negotiating the amenities here in the public hearing per se, but we've got another gap, a big gap that's going to remain up on Elmwood there, and I would think it'd be something that that would be appropriate to fill as well, which I think has a direct connectivity and a direct linkage with the impact of this project. And Ramsey, can you tell me what the staff has recommended in terms of...
That is the rest of what staff has recommended, in addition to what they have just added on to the discussion for the amenities. We had sidewalks from Westland Avenue up to where the sidewalks begin again at the intersection of Fairfield Drive and Elmwood. And then we also want to see them from the Faith Temple's west property line all the way down to South Clinton, were the two additional recommendations that staff had made earlier in the process.
And
what makes that significant is the fact that the county is going to be redoing Lockdeville, correct, Ramsey?
They're going to be putting a traffic light at Lockdeville, and
They're also going to be adding sidewalks from Lockdeville east towards Fairfield.
They will be from Cobb's Terrace to Faith Temple, right to the intersection, of Lockdeville, from Cobb's Terrace to the intersection of Lockdeville. From Lockdeville to the west, that's some of the areas that we want sidewalks to be constructed.
But that would make
we have recommended.
a continuous flow of sidewalks from the project all the way down Elmwood to 12 Corners, for that matter.
And the sidewalks that you just described, Ramsey, about how many linear feet additional is that?
I was doing math here. I had a number, and then.
No, I'm sorry.
It's in addition to what they just discussed tonight, if I could say that.
Yeah.
I would say it's about 1,600 to 1,700 linear feet of sidewalk. That's just sitting here calculating that.
Is this comparable with other incentive zoning projects we've had along Elmwood there and such?
It starts getting us closer.
Wait, just to make the record clear, what starts getting us closer to what?
There was a project in sidewalk construction for Walgreens. If you use that as a base, I think they would be putting in more. Walgreens ended up putting in, I think, over 4,000 square feet of sidewalks, if I do remember that right. I don't have that number with me this evening, but what we're talking about gets you a little bit closer to that number.
Did you say 4,000 linear feet or 4,000?
4,000 linear.
So at least you get us towards that.
Yeah, it gets us, and it's, you have to look at the other things that this project's proposing and the other things that Walgreens was proposing, but starts getting you, closer. The other thing that it does, it starts getting you closer to the project. And the amenities start serving the project, start helping some of the issues with traffic and sidewalk connectivity, pedestrian access.
See, up to now, Elmwood Avenue has been very choppy. We've had gaps of sidewalk and then gaps of grass and more sidewalk. And what is being proposed here is to connect a significant amount of that. And your point was the Fairfield to Westland would make it continuous sidewalk. What we're trying to do here is promote pedestrian and biking in Brighton. And this whole neighborhood along Elmwood Avenue the whole residential area would be connected to like the the nature trail, the Brickyard Trail. Right now, there's no way those people can find a sidewalk to get down to the entrance of Eastland traffic light to get across to the nature trail and then on down to Buckland Park. This type of amenity is the kind of thing that's very significant. I would just say, I don't want to get on my, soapbox here, but this is the whole idea behind incentive zoning, that they're not asking for any increase in the density. What we're asking for, and what we are saying in incentive zoning, if you're going to ask us to do something that's going to benefit your business, what are you going to do for the town? And that's what an amenity is all about. These are significant amenities that we feel that are important. And this is another reason why, when I started on this council years ago, the only town park we owned in this town was a triangle park at the 12 Corners. The one we had down at Carmen Lodge, we leased from the state of New York for $1 a year. Why would we spend your tax dollars to go buy 23 more acres when we already leased it for 99 years? So when we started this, when Sandy was here, we went from virtually nothing. Now we have over 500 acres of parkland, East Brighton, Central Brighton, and West Brighton. And that's what incentive zoning and amenities that come with incentive zoning will do for a town if you do it honestly, openly, and with a lot of transparency and thoughtfulness, and make sure that it's in keeping with a comprehensive development plan for the town. So,
And I think the important thing is that it have a linkage
Yes.
to the project.
You bet.
And the sidewalks, and actually, I thought the trail was a good idea too, because it might have the opportunity ultimately to add to the Brickyard Trail linkage down to this project, but we can't have everything. But between the two, the sidewalks out on Elmwood and Rootedville, it's a direct connection to this project.
And my apologies, I cut Mr. DePonzio off earlier just to get the developer to focus on the questions that the public raised, and I'm sorry, Jason, if I did that.
Quite all right. And actually, I just thought of a third question with respect to the proposed trail in the back, even though that would be off the table in exchange for additional linear footage of sidewalks. Would that be available in the future in the event there's another project that's proposing maybe a central linkage through the town's trail system?
The easement you're suggesting?
Right.
Yeah, so I have yet another exhibit. This is right out of your bicycle and pedestrian master plan, and it'll take me a second just to orient you. But again, South Clinton Ave, Elmwood.
Mr. Colucci, if you could use that portable mic again, please.
So South Clinton Ave, Elmwood, McQuaid, Brighton Town Hall, our project site. The trail amenity that's in the application, and we discussed this at the Public Works meeting, was to memorialize the future or envisioned linkage from the Brickyard Trail in a westerly manner through our project site and ultimately to what is now currently owned county land through signage and pavement markings that would bring it through existing sidewalk network and right-of-way, and then through our project site. And as you can see, on the project site, we initially showed the trail along the southerly boundary. Through working with the planning board, they asked us to try to work that through the site in more of a fashion where it brings it right through the heart of the project. And what Mr. DePonzio was suggesting was we have shown and expressed a willingness to do linkages to the residential community to the north and bring that trail to our southwesterly property where your master plan shows that that would eventually continue on. That, at the Public Works Committee meeting, was what I expressed earlier, was expressed to us that was not really as desirable. Sidewalks were more desirable. And, you know, we talked about, and you said, Jim, you know, talking openly and honestly, you know, let's not play poker. What what does the town want? What can we afford? We initially had the 1,125 lineal feet. We've basically doubled it based on our last Public Works Committee meeting to bring it up to the 2,187 lineal feet. And we feel that that's commensurate with what our ask is. We're not asking for additional density. We're asking for the ability to develop this property, which has sat vacant forever, right? There's nothing on it. We want the opportunity to develop this so that it can benefit the community. We have certain constraints. So we have offered now 2,200 lineal feet of sidewalk. There was an additional meeting that we had relative to potentially some Parks and Recs contributions to the community building in the back. Those are conversations we're willing to have and contribute to some of the amenities that would be required to make that a more pleasant experience for the folks who use the town pool. The community or the pool building is in a bit of disrepair. There's some repairs that are needed there. We're willing to work with the town on those matters.
Another question is, right now it's zoned as BEL, which is limited business, and it sounds like the square footage is fine. You'd be allowed this amount of square footage if there was no change in zoning.
Slightly more, actually.
It's okay, we'd be allowed slightly more if we under the current zoning. But as far as, so it's the uses. What uses are being proposed that, under this project, that wouldn't be permitted under the limited business zoning district?
Yeah, in the application that's outlined pretty well, and I can just give you the overall highlights. So BEL basically allows professional office, low density, or limited business. The uses that we're proposing are under the draft regulations that were attached to your application include up to 51,700 square feet of medical office, up to 12,000 square feet of restaurant uses, up to 11,600 square feet of daycare uses. Those are maximum thresholds. They add up to more than 77,000 square feet. Our development is limited to 77,000 square feet. So we could not exceed any of those uses in that square footage that I just identified. We drafted the regulations off of the BF1 zoning. So any use that was allowed in BF1, we looked at, we worked through in many work sessions with staff to try to condition those uses, and anything that was a more intense use is to the eastern portion of the site or frontage. Limited to the back is the office, medical office. Any intense use that would normally be allowed in BF1, we worked with staff to make sure that in these regulations would be on the eastern portion of the site, away from the residential property to the west.
So the incentives are necessary then in order to allow the restaurant use and the daycare use, but the medical office use would be permitted under...
Medical office is not permitted.
Not permitted, okay, so we would require that.
The only use, I believe, that was permitted is the professional office. Daycare was allowed as a conditional use permit, but one of the things the district does do is it limits your size and height of the buildings. So one of the things that this proposal does is ask for increased heights and increased sizes of the buildings. But a daycare center is permitted as a conditional use in the existing regulations. The regulations that they have prepared as part of the application would also allow retail, banks as a conditional use. Most things that you would see, like in Tops Plaza, would be permitted there. Might be a good summary of it.
And sorry to interrupt you, Jason, but this plan is the plan what would conform to code, as Ramsey mentioned. Buildings limited to 7,000 square feet. The overall lot coverage here conforms, the parking ratios here conform. So you can see if we didn't propose a zoning change to incentive zoning, this is the plan that we could build through simple application and site plan review. And here's the incentive zoning plan, just for a quick comparison.
Okay. So as far as what would be proposed as a conditionally permitted use, that would go before the planning board in the future to issue those conditional use permits under the proposed incentive zoning regulations?
That's correct.
And my question is just regarding the traffic. It looks like we have a traffic memo that's part of the original application from April of 2016, and then in the most recent submission of March of 2017, we have a letter in response from the county. I believe it's dated from July of 2016. So is the county's review of this as far as the traffic is concerned? Are they done with their review then?
Yeah, that July 2016 letter was their conclusory letter.
Okay.
And as I said, the town has, go ahead, Randy.
I was going to just say, I was going to just stop you because I just received county comments. The town board had authorized me to seek county comments through their development review process. In their memo to me, which I just received today, it said that there were still some outstanding comments that they had on the traffic study. And I wanted to also take this opportunity to correct Paul and let you know where we are on hiring a third party to review the traffic study on behalf of the town. We have submitted a request for prices. Those prices should be back at the end of next week. We will then need to go to the town board to seek authorization to enter into a contract for the selected firm, and then we will be able to review that traffic study and give feedback to the town board as part of the seeker environmental review. Where we are with that process, which is important because we need to conclude the State Environmental Quality Review Act before you can render any decision in this matter. We have coordinated the review, and we have seek the request to get lead agency status. I believe that time period for lead agency status is up at the end of this week.
The only thing I'd like to add to that is, as the town board knows, not only will we be able to get a traffic consultant on behalf of the town to take a look at the traffic study prepared by the developer, but also the developer will be picking up the cost of that traffic consultant as well. So that is not at the cost of the taxpayers.
And those funds have been deposited in the finance department, so they have already done that.
Yep.
Okay. And then as far as seeker review then, we haven't issued a determination of significance yet? As far
No.
as, okay.
We have not.
No, we have not done that.
That's all going to be.
Yeah, we still got to get our additional information, review that information, and then make a determination of significance in the future.
One other thing I wanted to add, Ramsey was describing the conditional uses. I think it would be worthwhile to also point out that specialty food stores, grocery stores, supermarkets would also be allowed as a conditional use, as would drive-through facilities as an accessory to either a permitted or a conditional use under the regulations that are being proposed.
All right. Any other questions?
The only question I have is, what do you say to the people that own CCB, the Children's Center of Brighton? I mean, obviously they're concerned about competition, and you can't stop competition. But I just wonder, have you talked to them? Have you?
We have not, Louise. I guess my position on that comment is really in our ability to develop the property. We want to be able to seek any and all tenants that are allowable within either the present zoning, where daycare is, as Ramsey stated, a conditional use under the limited business. We want to attract the best-in-class tenants. I think we've led with that with Doodlebugs. That would really set the stage for the rest of the development. I understand and hear her concerns. Doodlebugs, I know, has done their homework and their research, and their market study shows that there's currently folks at their Henrietta centers and other centers that are traveling to those locations from these zip codes. They've identified through their market study that there's a gap in coverage, and that it's not their intent or their business practice to try to steal families from other centers, but naturally that could happen. I don't really have anything more to add than that.
I have one thing to add to it, and that's this, Louise, is while certainly general economic impact of a project on town finances is something that can be considered by the board in its environmental review, actually, its seeker review of the project, and in determining whether to grant incentive zoning. It would not be appropriate for the town board to make a determination on this project based upon an interest in protecting a particular private business. That would not be an appropriate use of the town board's authority.
It's a good question to ask, but I think we really believe in free enterprise and open competition. And I, for one, don't see a big box store being invited into this property. So when we're talking about businesses, and I know, Chris, you had a question about the subsidized childcare, but that's a matter with the county. And I would tell any of you here, when it comes to those subsidies from the county, they're pretty skittish about this sort of thing. And I wouldn't put good money on how well Monroe County is doing when it comes to that sort of thing. But, I, for one, would not recommend altering a business model of a company or a business, but, at the same time, we don't want to see one business having an unfair advantage over another one. But I think there's enough business out there, especially with these needs, for all these businesses, as far as I'm concerned. But we're only at the beginning of this process, folks. No decisions tonight. This hearing is going to remain open for a while. So with that,
Mr. Vogel,
yes.
just to make sure that there's, if there's anyone else on the development team that wants to make any further comments, let's give them that opportunity. And if there's any
Sure.
other members of the public who want to get back up, we should make sure that happens as well.
Good evening, Board. My name is John DeMarco. I'm representing the DeMarco family and the DeMarco Group, and I just think it's important to note that when the DeMarco family acquired both of these pieces of property, they were owned by the state of New York and a business that did not pay any property taxes. And upon acquiring these, we began putting these properties back on the tax rolls. It was an initiative of the town board to request us to develop this property out so that it would generate property taxes, because since 2005, applications have come before the town that would not generate taxes for the town. And it was our objective early on to produce the highest and best use on this property that would provide for a future tax incentive by creating the most useful project here that would generate the most tax moving forward. It was also our understanding in 2005, as we moved to 2017, which is now 12 years of my life before the town board, that the existing zoning has not been inducing development of this property. So by virtue of having the 7,000 square foot height restrictions, use restrictions, it has rendered this property to come in with various different uses, most of which were looking for non-for-profit status or government status, which would not generate any taxes to the town of Brighton. So I just think that's an important item to not be overlooked at this point, even though it is in the beginning of a process that's been about a year and a half in the making, on top of about 10 or 12 years in the making. I just want to make sure that we understand that this particular project and the incentives that we're looking for are to produce a property that will maintain good standing in the community for an extended period of time. And I think we've shown as businesses in the town of Brighton that we have successfully done that and reinvested in our properties to make them as nice a property as could be on this corridor as well throughout the community. So I just want to make that point.
But just to be clear, Mr. DeMarco, you are seeking COMITA approval so that your project will not be paying property taxes for the first 10 years in full, correct?
Not correct.
Not correct. You're not going to apply for COMITA. That is great news for the town.
No, we will be paying taxes even with COMITA. And by virtue of giving businesses and uses in this community the opportunity to start their businesses with an incentive from COMITA, they are able to overinvest and build nice facilities that the ramp up of taxes over a 10-year period allows them to create an operating surplus that makes them a competing and contributing business in this community for an extensive period of time. And first cost developments are not inexpensive, especially when you'd like to see 4,000 linear feet of sidewalk, which at a town board level, do you know what a linear foot of sidewalk costs?
We do.
What is it?
I'm sorry?
What's the number? What would the town board value a number for linear feet of sidewalk?
We've got a chart on all
Why don't you tell us your number, Mr. DeMarco?
My number doesn't matter because I'm concerned about what the value of that is to the town.
We'll talk with your staff about that offline, okay?
This was brought up here in the environment. You brought it up to me. I'm telling you that the purpose of the incentives that we're putting forth is to bring the properties on the tax roll. And I will say that we have been paying taxes for a better part of 2 years now on these properties. We are not looking to take the taxes we're paying now to zero. We will continue to pay those, and they will continue to ramp up as we create valued properties here that can be assessed. Those assessments are then placed on the rolls, and then we do ramp up 10% a year for 10 years to full assessment. And there is a very real reason to do that, and it allows for people to invest in nice buildings, pay more, build a first-class facility that then grows into the business model while they're adding business. And as you know as well as anybody else and anybody listening, the first few years of a business are them building their business model. That's where incentives and expenses begin to roll up as fast, or in a lot of cases, faster than their revenue does. And to maintain a sustained, well-maintained business model on a go-forward basis, it's helpful to take good businesses and give them the necessary head start they need so they can be in a good business mind for an extended period of time, 20, 30, 40 years. It doesn't do us any good to squash a business in the first 5 years and have a vacancy that then needs to be dealt with. And that's my only counterpoint to what you're making, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but it's very much a priority of ours to have strong and long success, not just a quick hit and run.
Yeah, and I didn't want to make it sound like I was disagreeing with what you were saying. What we want to make sure of is that we have a clear record, which is that, and I think you've explained it well, is that the taxes won't be paid in full on the project. They will ramp up over a 10-year period of time. Eventually, we'll get to a full taxable base, and then payments will be made based on whatever the value of the property is for both the school and the county and the town. And the town taxes, and we do appreciate that. I think the town board really does appreciate the fact that you've offered that cash amenity. But I just want to make sure that that record is clear, that it is a project that isn't from day one going to be paying all of the county and all of the school taxes. And certainly we've had other projects similar to this that have been approved, but just to make the record clear. So I don't think we're saying anything different.
No, and for the record, I'm just saying that in this particular arrangement, these two properties were not paying taxes when we acquired them, and at the date of us acquiring them, we instantly put them on the tax rolls and have begun paying taxes. And as we develop the property, the assessed values will go up, so there will be more taxes paid as the property goes on. It is just giving businesses a head start to invest in their businesses and to grow their revenues and be able to pay and sustain the business expenses and taxes on a go-forward basis. And it just makes for a stronger project and a stronger community.
Mr. DeMarco, I think a point which I found well taken at the Public Works meeting was that this is important. This South Clinton commercial corridor is important to the town.
Yeah, very.
And this further development of this further enhances that very important commercial corridor, which is in competition with other parts of the county. So
Well-
I appreciate that.
No, and I
thought that
appreciate
was
your
a
note.
point that I'd not heard it again.
No, but we are well vested across the street and in this corridor, and we do believe that if this is developed correctly, it will further enhance the business commerce in this corridor. And as you've mentioned, we do not enjoy the same amount of traffic in front of our center and on South Clinton that Elmwood Avenue does have. So even though it is there, it would be helpful to entice a little bit of that traffic down South Clinton and for them to do some business and spend some money here in Brighton as opposed to heading off to other towns. So, no, I appreciate that, and thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that might now be primed to come up and ask questions, or if not? Yes, come on up. Just come on up, state your name and address.
Hello, I'm Sean Carey at 1550 Elmwood Avenue. I have a question about, you had mentioned a turning lane going into the development. I was wondering if you could explain that. Mainly my interest is in a cyclist. How would they traverse the road? Would they have to share it with the turning lane? Would they have to be on the sidewalk? How would a bicyclist get through?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So what I was describing, and probably what Ramsey was referring to in the county comments that came through the county referral, was right now we have the proposed intersection opposite Rudaville, proposed intersection opposite the existing plaza entrance. We're going to be striping a left turn lane, which would be southbound left turn into the plaza. There'll be a left turn lane northbound into the plaza. We have not finalized if there would be any geometric improvements with any deceleration or right turn lanes for the movement, which would be southbound into the northerly entrance, or if it would be necessary to have a right turn lane northbound. Typically, the right turn traffic is free flow, and if there isn't a need when you have high volumes to have that become a slip lane for deceleration, the county would not require us to do that. We're just working through the finalization of those geometric improvements. That's what I was referring to relative to the turn lanes.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I think so. Well, I mean, mainly, I was thinking about for the right-hand turn lanes, if they happen,
we would have to maintain the bike lane.
Okay.
And that, given that we own the right of way, we would be able, or not, we don't own the right, we own the frontage, we would be able to adjust that so that the turn lane and the bike lane, sidewalk, all those relationships would be maintained according to the county standards. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
Got it.
Is there anyone else like to speak? I think just before we move on and to the rest of the agenda and call the supervisor back in here, just for the edification of the public, these 11.5 acres were purchased by the state of New York, and they were going to put in the Empire State College, and that would have meant it stayed off the tax rolls permanently. When they came in here and did a workshop with us, we asked them point blank, they said, why did you buy that land and do this when right around the corner on Westfall Road, you have about 52 acres sitting there for the DSSO that are going to empty out, and you have a lawn, a beautifully manicured lawn of about, I would say, a good 15 acres. Why did you use your own land you already owned to build Empire State College? They sat here meekly in front of all of us and murmured, well, we didn't think about that. So what we try to do in this town is to connect the dots. That is, the town government with the county government, with the state government, and the feds. And, you know, we've done a pretty darn good job of that. If you ask me, I've been around here long enough to see this, the merits of this. But guess where Empire State College is today? Down on Westfall Road on the pre-existing state property. They put it on the rolls, and that's what the DeMarcos bought. So now we got it on the tax rolls, at least that far. So the rest is to follow after we continue on through this public hearing, which we're going to leave open. And it's open for the public to submit written comments, questions, concerns, recommendations. Anything else there, Counselor?
Nope.
All right. So with that, thank you, Paul, and
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
This
Appreciate
open?
it.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate all the work to date. Thank you.
now if we can retrieve the supervisor.
Yep.
Thanks.
Oh. I wrote it right here for Ken. It's like a drinking game.
It'll lighten up on him. So,
Are you on blood today? Are you on blood?
The chief of police, Ramsey, has overstayed his stay.
You let me down, Jim. I'm sorry. I was gonna put money on it.
welcome back.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Thank you for conducting that public hearing. I appreciate it. Okay, well now, oh, I didn't realize Louise had, do we need to, okay. We'll just take a momentary item of personal privilege. It's all right. We will next be receiving and filing various items of communication,
Yeah.
but we'll wait for Louise to get back.
You could proceed with the Community Services Committee report if you wished.
No, we could do that.
Louise was present at the meeting.
All right, why don't we go ahead and start that. We'll jump to our committee reports, and we'll start with the Community Services Committee.
Thanks, Bill. Our committee met June 20th last week, and Louise was present there, so this will not be news to her. We reviewed recreational programs. Becky Cotter indicated that the County Health Department was working with the pool system.
As was I, by the way.
Oh, and Bill as well. And you were there too, at the pool facility to keep that in good standing. And Becky reported that the new fencing has been installed around the exterior of that pool. Buckland Park, again, Matt indicated that, Matt Beeman indicated there's a large number of participants using the Buckland Park in all of the recreational programs, and it's what a challenge it's been to maintain those fields, but they are keeping ahead of it with the, actually, it's been good weather for vegetation there so far, but it's been a lot of grass to cut. Corbett's Glen Committee has begun. Matt Beeman met with Dennis Adams, the chair, along with Ray Warwick, Mike Zobel, and George Smith. We appreciate their service because there's a lot of issues there at Corbett's Glen, and for parking, erosion, dogs, and many, many other issues for this gem of a park, which is getting a tremendous amount of usage. Another issue was the boundary tree. There's some trees coming down along the boundary, and he's consulting with the town council regarding liability issues, particularly those that might find themselves in power or utility lines. Also, a tree is being removed that came down over the Brickyard Trail, and further discussion was had about the trail connection at Buckland Park across Westfall at the end of the Brickyard Trail, which would be part of the 2018 farm market project. The baseball contract has been reviewed, especially with respect to the concessionaire, which will be under direct contract with the town in the future here. Town park accessibility improvements are still hopefully going to be funded through the CDBG grant process in the fall of 2017. We also looked at the Islamic Center overflow parking issues that perhaps have been mitigated somewhat by the use of Paychex Park. The Sway Fund glider at the Town Hall playground has been delivered, and they anticipate installation in the fall. The Farmers Market Community Center there at Buckland Park, we're waiting a return of bid-ready documents from the architect.
And that's really for the farmers market.
For the Farmers Market,
Community
yes.
Center, yeah.
4th of July, there's some discussion about the necessity or not of crowd managers or certified crowd managers, and it's been determined that the necessity is really focused on indoor events and not outdoor events. But we will have at least 12 members of staff there to help with
And they will be trained
organizing
as
the event.
crowd managers.
Yes.
Already done. Good.
Excellent. The clock also has been installed at the town pool, and we appreciate Christine Cordaro and her husband, Andy
Green?
Andy Green.
Yeah, Andy
Green, donating that. It's a great addition, something you take for granted in a public space like that, but we now have one there. Louise is looking at, Louise would very much like to get new tables and umbrellas there, and there's some discussion of that at the committee, as well as a tour of the pool area that follow. The traffic box project is coming great. At the Brighton High School Art Club has painted 2 boxes on Westfall at Lac DeVille and Barclay Square, and they're only waiting on the town board member to go and put the anti-graffiti coating on them if the weather would just stop raining.
They look great.
Also, we're discussing the rent source inquiry legislation that might prohibit a landlord from discriminating against Section 8 housing grant recipients and other sources of income that perhaps might keep a tenant out of a landlord's property. And Bill has been in discussions with West Seneca and Hamburg regarding their experience with similar legislation.
And I would note that the city of Rochester has just taken action on similar legislation. I've sent around an article to each of you. And again, I think this is important legislation, and it's something I'm certainly committed to moving forward on and giving very, very serious
We want a full discussion, and we're going to engage landlords in the process as well, understand their perspective, and make certain all issues are reviewed. The Brighton Senior Rise Program was again discussed, and Jim has graciously volunteered to attend a committee meeting for that lifespan project, which would provide rides to seniors at the beginning for medical appointments and also to go to religious events at the outset, but ultimately they hope to expand it, and there is a need for further volunteers. So anybody interested in that can contact, direct them to Lifespan, or perhaps through the rec department they can be directed onto Lifespan. And also Jim mentioned that it would be helpful if we repainted the crosswalk out front of the library, and that's been referred to the highway department. Our next meeting is July 19th, 10 o'clock in the Stage Conference Room.
Thank you very much, Chris. Let's go back now to the items of communications. Can I have a motion to receive and file communications?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on any of these. Each one of them has a description that pretty self-explanatory. Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. Jason, Finance?
Yes, the Finance Committee met last Tuesday, June 20th, and the items that we discussed at that meeting are presented on tonight's agenda, namely the budget transfers that appear the third item. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday, July 5th. We start at 8:30 in the morning, and we meet in the Stage Conference Room, and the public is invited to attend.
Thank you, Jason. Public Safety, Louise?
Public Safety has not met since the last meeting. Next meeting will be July 11th at 8:30 in the morning. in the downstairs conference room. Public is invited.
Thank you. Public Works, Jim.
Public Works Committee has not met since the last meeting. Our next scheduled meeting will be Tuesday, July 11th. And Louise, you got yours at 8:30?
8:30.
And ours is at 9 o'clock.
Public safety is at 8.
And we normally have it downstairs, so.
Yeah, 8.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll, and normally it's done within an hour, so it should be fine.
Good, great. Enough said.
Okay, new business. Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, earlier today I reviewed claims totaling $913,162.37. Notable claims include $287,500 to the City of Rochester, representing the third quarter payment for fire protection services in the West Brighton Fire Protection District. Also to Suit Coat Corporation in the amount of $86,673.19 for surface treating of town roads, namely oil and stone chip sealing as part of our road maintenance program. Also to Spinrite Incorporated in the amount of $35,235.65 for sidewalk repairs throughout the town as part of our 2017 sidewalk repair program. The claims all appear to be in order, and I have moved that they be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros? Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jim?
The next item is to accept a donation in the amount of $250 from Ann Townsend for the Brighton Veterans Memorial Fund. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And thank Ann Townsend very nicely for that generous donation.
Absolutely, and we have a letter going out to her. Discussion on that? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Next item, Jason.
Yes, the next matter seeks approval for various budget transfers and appropriations to the 2017 budget to support changes made since the adoption of the budget. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
These are all made at the request of our finance director, Suzanne Zaso. Suzanne, do you want to give a brief overview?
Sure, there's not many of them. As you know, we do these a few times a year just to kind of keep our budget in balance. Most of them are just kind of reclassifying, like we already budgeted for the expenditure, but it's just where we ended up charging it was a little bit different. But we, we had a couple new things. One, a positive thing, we're saving some money in some debt service for interest from refinancing some bonds, but it made the principal go up a little bit for this year only, but the net amount was a savings. And a couple unexpected expenditures with some vehicles, but otherwise it's really just moving funds from one spot to another.
Great, thank you for that. Further discussion on any of these items? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll on the motion.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jim, next matter.
Next item is to set July 26, 2017 as a public hearing date to consider the replacement of existing yield signs located at various intersections with stop signs. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion on this. These are various, actually a couple of locations. One is at the corner of Bonnie Brae and Sonora, and the other is at the corner of Sonora with South St. Regis, both in the Roselawn.
I think this Glen Ellen Way, I believe, is what we're, Bonnie Brae and Glen Ellen.
What did I say? I meant to say Bonnie Brae and Glen Ellen. Yeah.
To Glenora.
Oh, okay.
It's close.
Yeah, again, both in the Roselawn
Scott.
neighborhood. And this will be setting a public hearing, which will be held on July 26th.
And I will note that there are draft local laws that you've been provided.
Correct. And actually, the local law both removes yield signs and directs the installation of stop signs. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anything further? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jim?
Next item is to hire a permanent highway department laborer, subject to a 52-week probationary period, beginning July 3rd, 2017. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Nick Valenti has been working in the highway department on a temporary basis, and we now have the opportunity to appoint him on a full-time basis, on a provisional full-time basis. And that's the recommendation from the commissioner.
Yep.
Any discussion on any of that? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. These next two items are related, but Jim, since they're public works, highway-related matters, why don't you take those?
Well, let's see. The first item is to approve a removal of a stop sign at Lockdeville Boulevard northbound and Elmwood Avenue intersection in connection with the Monroe County Department of Transportation Safety Improvement Project at this location. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
For those of you that have driven down Elmwood in the last week, you'll see that construction has begun. This is a project that I advocated for, as well as a neighbor. Looking at Lockdeville Boulevard, it generates a lot of traffic, both with the doctor's offices on the south side of Westfall, but also the residences and the Tops Plaza. We have a traffic signal at Westfall Road, but Elmwood Avenue being a 4-lane highway and generating an awful lot of traffic, it made sense to put that in. This project, we've talked about it. It will involve the installation, the creation of a left turn lane and a traffic signal, and a little bit of additional sidewalk area.
And just to be clear, this particular resolution right now is simply authorizing the removal of a stop sign.
Of a stop sign.
The
And
next matter that you'll reach on the agenda authorizes the installation of the traffic signal.
Correct, yep. Okay, we have that motion and second. Any discussion further on that? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye, and Jim, part two.
The next item is to approve installation of a traffic signal device at the Lockdeville Boulevard northbound and Elmwood Avenue intersection in connection with the Monroe County Department of Transportation Safety Improvement Project at this location. I move in the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And as noted by Ken, this is the installation of that new traffic signal. Same intersection. Discussion on that?
This same project is the one that the county, I think, is going to add the sidewalks on the north side of Elmwood Avenue.
A little bit, yes, they will.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Eastbound, which we really look forward to seeing that happen. So, okay.
Dan, please call the roll on that motion.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Chris?
Next item is for the appointment of Donald Streaks as a member of the Architectural Review Board. I move that we adopt the resolution prepared by the attorney for the town before us.
Second.
This is actually a bit of a catch-up. His appointment will be effective non-pro-tunc January 1st through December 31st, 2019, 3-year term. I'm sorry, go ahead, Louise.
When did he come before us?
He interviewed in December.
December, yeah. Early December.
December 10th. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion on that? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is to set a public hearing date of July 28th, 2017, to consider an amendment to the incentive zoning application previously approved for the University of Rochester South Campus Institutional Plan Development Project, requesting a delay in the next required traffic study date from the first quarter of 2017 to June 2018. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
I believe I heard the motion has to, or the resolution in your packet has the correct date. I believe I heard you say, Louise, the July 28th, and the public hearing date is, in fact, July 26th. So if you can, I don't think we need even an amendment because the
No, it says July 26th, and I think I heard her say July 26th. But maybe not. Maybe I was reading and not listening.
We've had discussion about this item. The hearing will be the 26th of July. Okay. We have had discussion on this item before, that because of the ongoing construction there, that the conducting the traffic study at this date really would not provide the kind of accurate information that was intended. But because this is an incentive zoning approved project.
It was a condition.
Yeah, this is a condition of that incentive zoning approval. So the only way we can amend an incentive zoning resolution is following a public hearing. So we're calling for that public hearing to be set.
All right.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, we are now very much into the budget development process. As always, the first step is the preparation of our 3-year capital improvement plan. You'll be pleased to know, Suzanne, that I spent that hour out of the room working on the CIP. So, but that's a really important building block for our budget because it allows us to take a longer term look. It's something that the comptroller's office has always felt is important, our accountants believe is important, and it really gives us a way to anticipate where significant expenditures might be. As always, I think it's important to note that the budget process we engage in the town of Brighton has for many years been a much more open and extensive process than is required by law. The law requires one public hearing. By the time we are through with this process, we will have had over a half a dozen committee and town board meetings at which the CIP and/or the budget will have been discussed, all of which are, of course, open meetings. We will have had 2 town board workshops at our the days of our 2 August board meetings, August 9th and August 23rd. We will have not 1 but 2 public hearings in October. And as always, we will adopt, it is certainly my hope and my expectation that the board will adopt a budget for the year 2018 in October before local elections. I think that's important so that the people in this community know what your local government budgeted for your tax bill. We heard a presentation tonight about the revaluation, and obviously that, although the assessment of property is very different than the taxes, again, we want the community to know that as we do this budget, it is an open process. It's one that you'll have access to. The budget materials will be on our website, and we welcome community input on many, many occasions through the process. So, matters of the attorney to the town. Ken.
I do not have any, thank you.
Matters of the clerk.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. Matters of members of the board.
Got,
I just wanted to report on the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee. Has met actually twice this month to review the land use recommendations on the 5 focus areas. 5 focus areas have been identified as the Monroe Avenue corridor, the Central Brighton Westfall Road corridor over near Buckland Park, South Clinton Avenue, Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road, and then West Henrietta Road. So, and actually some lively discussions, thought we could do it in one meeting, but it ended up going over into 2 meetings, discussing the land use recommendations. Now it's up to the consultant to revise the draft document, and we'll be back for further review probably the end of summer. The goal is still to have the public hearings and adopt the new comprehensive plan before the end of the year.
Good.
Good.
Moving forward.
Good. Thank you for the time you're putting in on that, and thank you, to our volunteer board members. It's a good-sized board. It's a very thoughtful and active group of people with a wide variety of backgrounds.
Pretty lively at 7:30 in the morning, that's for sure.
Yeah. Good. Good. Thanks, Jason.
Is that from your committee?
This is just a draft document that the consultant has been putting together for discussion
Chris,
purposes.
Chris, did you want to?
Yes, Becky Cotter has passed along some announcements from the rec department. Summer registration is very much underway, and but spaces are being filled on a first-come, first-served basis. You can do it online, in person, or by mail, or by calling the rec department with any questions. And at 784-5260, I'm sorry, 784-5260, extension 0. Summer brochures are available online at the town hall, the library, the school district buildings, etc. The summer concert series is starting at 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m., July 11th through August 15th, weekly, and the Brighton Symphony will kick us off. Also, she mentioned the Brighton Senior Rides Program through Lifespan. Farmers Market is up and running, very active on Sunday mornings, 9 to 1. And winter registration is actually open as well. And here's a sampling of some of the programs of interest. Horseback riding lessons, tap and jazz, fairy house making, tennis, dog training, Super Tots program, and Marvelous Makers. And she asks that you please like the Brighton recreational program on Facebook.
Thanks, Chris. Great variety of programs for people of all ages through the rec department.
Becky does a great
Those
job.
concerts are wonderful. We've got some repeat favorites like the Brighton Symphony, Noble Vibes, the Reggae Band, and some new acts that I think people are really going to enjoy on Tuesday nights in July and August.
Perfect.
Anything else from the board?
Yes, I have a question. Ramsey, can you talk or advise Tim that I've gotten some calls from people in Roselawn saying that the garden on the corner of Seminole and Elmwood really needs tending to.
Sorry, Louise,
I'm sorry. That rose garden on Seminole and.
The rose garden, okay, sorry.
Yes, it's just full of weeds and no plantings, and this year, for some reason, and the walkways are a mess. Also in front of the courthouse, the walkways, the brick need to be tended to. And the other thing was, I have a question as to why the person on Warren Avenue who put up a sign on her lawn, why is that illegal?
That's something I'm going to be working with the highway department on, and I'd be happy to chat with you offline about that.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah. Somebody happy next Tuesday?
Absolutely. 4th of July, the Brighton 4th of July.
Oops, yeah.
It's a big day. It's a full day. Starts with the annual Chamber of Commerce 5K race. I believe that is at 8 a.m.
8 a.m.?
Out in front of the high school. Registration is still open on that, I'm sure.
I'll either run or I'll volunteer, I don't know. I know at the chamber.
So after the race is the annual pancake breakfast in the high school cafeteria. Runners get a discount, and yep, $2 off. That's a lot of fun. That's a nice way to get some energy back after a race, or for families to get together and start the 4th with some pancakes. Then in the afternoon, as always, we'll be out at Meridian Center Park. We have music starting in the middle of the afternoon, a number of great acts, activities of various kinds, rides, bounce houses, food, all sorts of great things to do. I will say that the rides, again, will have, we had a new ride vendor last year. It was very well received. The zip line seemed to be a very favorite activity. And once again this year, there will be wristbands for a ride all day. When they open, right through to the very end of the day. So that's a great feature for families with kids that, you know, get off the ride and want to get back in line and go. The wristband lets you do that. Sky coasters, 8 o'clock. Sky coasters are always a big hit. And then just before 10 o'clock, about 9:50, the great fireworks show that Young Explosives puts on every year. We have a number of great business sponsors that are helping us underwrite the cost of that event. So come on out, 4th of July, Meridian Center Park. Spend part of the day or all of the day, but whatever you do, make sure you're there at the end of the evening. Enjoy the sky coasters, enjoy the fireworks, and celebrate our independence and the freedom that we all cherish so much.
Super. Just note quickly that regarding the 5K, I know the Brighton Chamber is still looking for volunteers.
Yes, they are.
Yesterday, so if anybody's interested, you can email Jordan from the Mint Salon at JordanGBetts, BETTS, @gmail.com. The chamber was, again, looking for volunteers yesterday. So.
Thank you. Not sure what that is that's beeping over there. Can I have a motion then to go into executive session to discuss matters of litigation?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. I don't anticipate we'll be coming back out, so I want to thank everybody who is here tonight. Our next board meeting will be on July 12th, 7 o'clock right here at Town Hall. Have a great evening, everybody.